me go here, and let me go here. Hopefully it's gonna take 10. Yeah,
Okay.
we're good.
Hello, everybody. We're back again. Want to talk about U visas and some of the issues and questions and topics that are coming up in today. And I'm here with my partner.
Defilia Diaz, how are you? So we are in Thursdays, the first Thursday of every month, and I'm so happy to be with you because we have created a great partnership educating the community about the U visas. And I am so excited about this program, even though there is a huge backlog. We understand that.
Absolutely.
But still, we know that there's still victims in the community and they need to know what are the benefits, the rights, and how to come in contact with law enforcement. So that's why we are here.
Yeah, absolutely. We just want to be able to share information, educate everybody, knowing what this is and what kind of powerful tool it is to assist everybody in our community.
Perfect. So, where do you want to start off?
So again, last time we kind of talked about qualifying crimes and things like that that would benefit what the U visa is. So let's start from the beginning again, just a little bit. The U visa is basically a certification for a victim of certain crimes, that if you're an immigrant, that you wouldn't have to fear any retaliation or any hostile action towards you as an immigrant, and police will serve you and assist you as being a victim, so you would know or need our assistance in your time of crisis.
Correct. And also it has a lot of benefits in the area of immigration. So if you do not have status or you're going to be losing your status in the United States, you can apply for this immigration relief that is called U visa. Depending on the type of victim, the victimization, you might qualify for other reliefs, and that's why it's so important to go with an expert, with an attorney that knows this type of reliefs. But the more important part of the U visa certification, in the U visa is the U visa certification, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because it doesn't really matter how heinous or how violent the crime it was, if we do not include the U visa certification, which is the signature from the law enforcement with the package that you're submitting to UCIS, to the agency in immigration, is not going to get approved. So here it is when it is very important that the experts are making a good collaboration and partnership with law enforcement agencies.
Absolutely. What our part in this is not only to help you in your time of crisis, but to ensure that whatever the crime is, that it qualifies for protections for you to be able to assist us in solving the crime, making the arrest, and ultimately getting it to court. And again, not that any of those steps have to be occurring at any certain time, but it's the assistance that we get from our victims and the trust of our cooperation with each other to assist each other, again, in the time of crisis and in the crime that we're investigating.
Sounds perfect. Do you want to mention some of the crimes that do qualify?
Absolutely, but let's start kind of with the process first,
Okay.
and then we'll go into some of the crimes. So number one, most people don't really realize that it's actually the U visa's forms. That it's a formal application. I actually have a blank one here, and basically, if everybody can see it on the other platforms, and this is something that you can see online. It's not anything that's super secret or government, what have you. But what happens is once you're a victim of this crime, it gets filled out by your attorney, and then it gets presented to us to then verify and then ultimately certify if it falls under the categories of qualifying crimes, and then the victim being a victim of those crimes. And there's all kinds of different crimes and the different ways that you can be victims, and we can kind of go over that as we go through some of this. But the important thing is that once you become a victim, you find out that you're qualifying, that you find an attorney, and then through your attorney's process, they will fill out this documentation and then present it to any and all forms of law enforcement that would be investigating or overseeing this type of offense.
Correct. And this certification, this document, you can find it in the website. Make sure that you go to www.ucis.gov because there is a .com, and
Yes.
they sell you these documents that they are for free.
They're
So GOVV, like a vector, and he had it also in you can translate it into Spanish, and
Yes.
in other languages. So here, this document has to be prepared by an attorney. Sometimes law enforcement agencies will like to prepare themselves, but the law enforcement agencies would like to be presented with the police report, any other documentation that the victim has where it's supporting that that person was in fact the victim of that crime.
Absolutely. Well, from my standpoint, because I'm the one that handles them for our agency, we're looking for, first of all, information that identifies the victim distinctly. So you can't be, somebody else, this is who you are. This is the exact crime that occurred. And then if you incurred any injuries through this process, and then ultimately that you have assisted us, are continuing to assist us, and are available throughout this whole process to assist us in solving this crime.
Correct.
Okay, so some of the things that we want to talk about as far as qualifying crimes, and there's a number of them, and I'll also say that states throughout the country have different terminology for these crimes. So some things might fall under certain categories that are not listed exactly as that crime. But a few of them: abduction, abusive sexual contact, blackmail, domestic violence, extortion, false imprisonment, felonious assault, female genitalia mutilation, fraud and foreign labor contracting, hostage, incest, involuntary servitude, kidnapping, manslaughter, murder, obstruction of justice, peonage, perjury, prostitution, rape, sexual assault, sexual exploitation, slave trade, stalking, torture, trafficking, witness tampering, unlawful criminal restraint, and related criminal activities. And again, a number of these things in different states are titled different things. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, your crime may not fit. That's why it's important that you obtain an attorney, number one, because they can read between the lines on what crimes that may have occurred to you that do fit under this. And then obviously it would come to law enforcement. For our department, it would come to me, and then I could go through the laws to see what falls under those categories and constitutes a qualifying crime.
So we have a question. Hello, and in English. So it's really nice question. If the certification is not approved, will the police send the information to ICE? That's an excellent question. Is there a risk of deportation?
So absolutely not. So this is not something that we, I'll speak for our agency, but it's not something that's required by our country when we're dealing with this. All we're doing is investigating the fact that this is a qualifying crime, that we have a victim, and that they are assisting us in this. There's no, like for example, for this year, I've done 10 U visa certs this year already, and I've rejected 2. One was because the victim actually had not reported anything as far as the crime, so there's nothing for us to investigate. So I can't certify something if we don't have anything to investigate. So we're kind of working on the victim actually reporting the crime, and then find out if it's qualifying in doing that. So sometimes it's little things like that in the victim's case, they actually called 911, had the police respond, but the offense was not reported. So we're working on that. The other one was just not a qualifying crime.
What was it? What was it?
It was criminal damaging. So criminal damaging to a vehicle, nobody in the car, no distinction of you're trying to harm a particular person. It was just the window was damaged with a side mirror. And so that doesn't qualify as one of the crimes that, that fall under the categories that I had said before. And sometimes people just don't understand that, but that's part of my job is to go through there, make sure that it is qualifying, and to assist the victims. And then to explain to the victims if it's not, why it's not, and what we need to do. So
I asked you what was the one that did not qualify.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's very important for the public to understand that the U visa was created to protect the victims of violent crimes. So if when it's criminal damaging or theft, for example, it is against the property.
Yes.
It is, although you are the owner of the property and you feel that it was against you,
Yes.
it is the crime itself, it was only to the property, correct?
Yes, to the property. So it's not a direct attack on a particular person. It was just happened to be that their car was damaged, and there's no evidence to say that there's anything more leading to that.
Exactly. We have another one.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish that.
Okay.
So we do not report the rejections. We were not required to.
Yes.
There's no stipulation on that at all. And like I said, the only thing is for us to be able to assist the victim so they can assist us in solving the crime.
I have to say that in 11 years that I have been dealing with U visas, I have not seen a police department that have reported the victim to ICE.
Yeah.
And,
I've been doing this for 8 years, and it never happened as far as what I'm doing.
and also, ICE has a division that actually it is only for crime investigation, so human
Yes.
crime investigation.
Yes.
And right now there's a policy, a guidelines that we have under the current administration, that they are not only guided to protect the victims of crime, but also in their encounter with civilians to actually see and detect potential victims of crime.
Yeah, the thing that, again, and I'm not trying to bash the media, but the media doesn't explain that the Department of Homeland Security is not just one-sided. They do a magnificent job in helping, especially our trafficking victims, getting them support, housing, taking care of them, bringing the bad guys to justice that are doing that with them, because we work in conjunction with them when we're trying to assist our trafficking victims.
Correct.
And I can't say enough of the amazing job that they do assisting us with our victims.
And if you get in contact with ICE, an ICE officer say, I have been a victim of a crime, and by this guidance, this policy, they are motivated. They cannot be forced, but they are motivated to actually provide you resources. So we have another one. The police denied the certification for the second time for the adjustment of status when the U visa was done, and they are applying for the green card. My lawyer told me that they denied the second certification. What they can do about it.
So when it comes to law enforcement, again, don't know what the qualifying crime is or what the background on that application is. Law enforcement is us as police, but it also is lawyers and judges. So in some cases, especially in our area, we've had some departments that don't even understand what this is. And I've had to go out and explain it to them and assist them in doing it. Sometimes even have them with a letter, have it certified through us, but with a letter with that department saying that, yes, we agree with everything that's being said and stipulated here. So it just depends on maybe who you're talking to in your department, and maybe if there's somebody that's actually in charge of this. I mean, even here in our agency, sometimes it will go to a different department, and then it would have to be routed to me. And so, like, somebody will call and go, hey, I sent you this U visa 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, no, I don't have it. And then, but it's went to, like, District 2, because we have 4 districts here, and then we have a central business district. And it'll go just to the wrong district. Then it had to get mailed to me, and then I can take care of it from there.
I have to say, for this person that it was writing about the certification, when they are applying for the green card, after they got the U visa, they don't need another certification.
Oh, so there you go. I was going to say that. I was going to ask you that. No, once it's past us, and we've certified it, it's done from our part. We don't get anything coming back towards us.
Yeah, once they have the U.S. status, they finally is approved and they get 3 years with the U.S. status. One of the major benefits is that they can apply for the green card.
Yes.
And in this adjustment of status, they need to provide evidence that they keep cooperating with law enforcement.
Yes.
And one of the options is another certification. However, the law does not require another certification.
No.
It's one of the options. But another option, it would be an affidavit saying I cooperated with law enforcement, I called, the suspect was never arrested, or it was arrested, it was sent to court, but I never got subpoenaed, I provide all the information to the officers, I never got a call back, and that will be sufficient.
And see, it's like in my investigations, I'll actually add, like if it goes to trial and it goes to case, I'll add it's on public record as far as the clerk of courts, I'll add those things to it.
Yeah.
So that way we're showing that not only did they help us in reporting it, but they've been through this process, and we're actually in the process in court.
Yeah, and it has a blank spaces, and I also when I'm doing trainings with attorneys, I'm like, you can use these blank spaces for so many things.
Yes.
Sometimes police reports, because they are the crime is committed against minors, is blackened.
Yes.
It is redacted.
Yes.
Because of the victim's name should be redacted because it is a minor.
Yes.
So we can include it here. or an additional explanation about the type of crime or how any other facts, it can be included here. So that is why it is very important that you go with an attorney and know how to prepare this form.
Yeah, because again, some of the certs that I have, I could tell you some problems I have with them that I have to work with some attorneys on. I don't. You do an excellent job. But they won't include those things. Like if we've had injuries, they're not including the injuries that the victim has sustained. Or if there's medical documentation, they won't include those. And so a number of times, especially when I'm dealing with people that are just recently victims, I'll tell them, hey, take pictures, make sure that you're documenting your injuries, make sure you get your medical records, things like that to bring into this, because that assists in the process of this certification.
Excellent. Another question, does battery qualify for U visa?
Right, so see, we don't call battery here, so that would kind of fall into our lines of assault. It just depends on the level of assault or the level
What
of
is battery?
So battery would basically be your assault, like if you're being hit,
Punch.
injured, right? Or it actually doesn't have to be injury, it could be misses, like somebody tried to hurt you and tried to injure you. That can fall into place too, but it depends on the level. So if we're just fighting and I swing and I hit you, that could be assault, or that could be what you call battery. But if I injure you seriously, where you have to go to the hospital and you have to have some real serious medical attention, then that bumps the charge up from just an assault to like an aggravated assault or felonious assault or what have you. So plus the difference with battery as well is like if we're married, now it's domestic violence and it's not just assault. So that's why I said it really depends on the battery and the background to that to see exactly what level it would qualify. So because domestic violence qualifies no matter what.
Yes.
But the battery just depends on the level of injury and the level of assistance you need with that injury.
And you have to read the code, because I have had some instances in some states where it's called battery, when here in Ohio it can be an aggravated battery, because over there it is categorized like a felony and it's just battery. Right? So go with an attorney, probably it can qualify. They can be what the argument that it has to be done with immigration. Battery or assault, simple assault, meaning, for example, punching you or pulling you in your hair, something unlawful touching, without anything else, will not qualify. But however, some of the statute you can include unlawful restraint, but also you have to read the code and talk to law enforcement agency.
Yeah, some of it can be explained, like Ohio Revised Code is online. So you can look at some of these things, but I'd strongly suggest to either be with a lawyer or talk to your local law enforcement. We can explain some of the laws and assist you in understanding that as well.
How can I file a police report for a group or person that are selling work permits and doing something unlawful with immigration? Like they are selling the services, immigration services. I don't understand quite the question, but this is just a bit.
So basically, this is kind of a hot thing right now where people are frauding people for saying that they're going to be able to purchase a green card through them or a work permit through them, and they'll actually use fake documentation and say, hey, send us some money. And the number one thing is first and foremost, none of this is ever going to be offered online. You're never going to get any type of real valid offer of saying, hey, if you can send us $6,000, we're going to put you in the process of getting a green card, or we're going to give you a work permit. None of this is going to be offered online. And you never, ever, ever should you just send your money to someplace thinking that they're going to give you some type of opportunity without you actually validly talking to somebody, dealing with 99% of the time. You should be going through a lawyer with this stuff, so then you can understand the exact benefits that you're actually getting from this. We've had in Price Hill, we've had 4 victims of this where, like, they'll put it on Facebook and they'll go, oh yeah, I really want to be a green card member here, and again, it's a lot of benefits to that. So there's gonna be a lot of people that want this, but it's never gonna be offered online or through social media that this is an opportunity for you. And like I said, a couple of these people sent money out, and they're not going to get that money back because it's not valid. It's not something that our government is doing online for you to just go and apply. And it definitely, this process is long. So, I mean, I have documentation about how long this process goes. I mean, I have it right here. Just for the current processing for U visas is anywhere from 59 to 60 months. So it's not going to be something where I can purchase in 2 months, and in the third month I'm gonna get, my opportunity to do stuff. Again, the important thing is to get with somebody that is very knowledgeable with this, lawyers, that actually have been doing this and know what they're doing, and that way you can get an understanding about what this process really is, and that you actually do it the way you need to, so you don't get scammed.
I would say if you are hiring somebody, ask about their credentials. If you come into my office and you ask me whether I have a license to practice law, I will say yes. It will be a very short yes. It will not it will not take much for me to think about it or an additional explanation. And be sure or be confident and to ask you, okay, which is your agency, or where are you admitted to? What is the number of your license to practice law? And not attorneys will just be mad for you to ask you about that. I think that's your due diligence. And also, none of this will cost something that you have to pay the police, or something that you have to be given something in value for you to receive the certification. Yes. So that, of course, if you are paying an attorney, that is different, but also there is nonprofit organizations that also represent victims of crime. But I'm saying you don't have to be paying the government. The government will not charge you to issue a certification. That will be a big red flag.
Absolutely. But again, anything that you have to send money to and they're asking you to make it installments and payments and things like that, that's a big no. Don't do it.
We have another one. Why can I see my police report? It was filed when I was a minor.
So for public record reports, we protect all of our minors. So we're not going to document any personal information about juveniles on an official police report. I mean, we have it as far as for courts and for law enforcement to be able to view. But as far as a public record is concerned, we're going to protect the juveniles as much as we can with their personal information. So it will be redacted. It will not be shown. But on official records, like if it has to go through a U visa process or if it has to go to court, all of those documents will be seen by law enforcement individuals and lawyers that are representing those. So those will all be presented in court for you, but it just won't be on a public. So like if I'm not a police officer and I go to our record section and I decide I want to purchase a copy of the report, even though I get a copy of what happened on the report, I'm not going to get the victim's information if they're a juvenile, because again, anybody can get that because it's public record. And so we just take it away from everybody because we don't want to share juveniles' information with other people.
But what about if it's the juvenile himself? Can he get?
No, even the juvenile yourself, because again, we can't go between who's going to disseminate that information or not. But as far as the courts are concerned, law enforcement is concerned, we will have that information and understand that this report is pertaining to that particular juvenile. It's just something that we do, like I said, unfortunately, in history, people have taken juveniles' information and misused it and abused it and things of that nature. So it's just important to protect our kids as much as we can.
And an idea that I will do with that, because actually we had a case where everything was redacted. The police report was redacted, so we used this part. So you can use this part, and you can, for that person that it was a victim of a crime when he was a minor, and the police report was redacted, it can be explained in the certification why it was redacted. But the law enforcement agency that is signing the certification, it is actually certifying that that person that it was included in the certification was in fact the victim. And UCIS will give a heavy weight on the certification.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I do my investigations on them, that's exactly part of what I'm making sure that the victim that's being presented to me is the exact victim that we're dealing with, and with the exact crime, and again with the assistance. So that's part of my job and getting these certified.
There is another question that says, what happened if the law enforcement agency is not giving me another certification? I sent it to immigration, but it was expired when it was filed. I think that it was a little bit of a negligence on who filed a U visa, because the certifications are only valid for 6 months. Otherwise, they expired, and you have to file a new one. But then when you go back to the law enforcement agency, they don't want it to issue a new one.
Right. So that happens with us. So there are times that, and it's not necessarily the attorney's fault, because I thought the window was 2 years once we do it, but sometimes the case cannot be heard within that 2-year window. So then we would have to reissue a new one just so it's up to date. And so, we don't have a problem doing that, especially if we've already certified it and done the homework to know that, this is a qualifying crime, we have our victim and everything else. But again, if law enforcement is having a challenge with that, you can always go to the judge or the prosecuting attorney that is also handling the case or has handled the case, and they can assist you with that as well.
Yeah, sometimes that's very simple and easy here in Cincinnati, but I have had another law enforcement agencies. For example, I'm gonna throw out a name out there, because Houston PD, the police in Houston, they have their own rules, where if you request the law enforcement the certification with these years, and it was an arbitrary amount of years, you will get the certification. But since it's taking so long for the U visas to get adjudicated and reviewed, some of them, UCIS will come back and say, well, I need a new certification.
Yes.
And then the victim goes back to the agency and said, I need a new certification, please. And the agency said, well, no, because I already issued it to you, and that's the only one that I was going to give it to you.
Right. Some of that is just a lack of education on police departments, because, again, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, so studying this and understanding the process of this, you know that you're going to get some certifications back, because we only have so many immigration courts. So even the backlog of the cases are going to mandate that some of these are going to have to be recertified. There's no answer buts about it. So sometimes it's just maybe, again, I don't know, the Department of Houston or who that person is, but talking to a few other officers in different states that do this, I mean, there's a clear understanding, like our closest one is in Cleveland. I mean, you might want to argue.
The immigration court?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I mean, I know that one is, but there might be one.
In Louisville?
Okay, I was going to say Louisville. So, you got a toss-up between, how backlogged those courts are and how many cases they're hearing to be able to then to know your certification is going to go through. But again, I would, if you've exhausted your resources with the police department, I would go to the prosecutor's office, or maybe even a judge, a sitting judge, or what have you. And again, have that information and try to provide that with them, and hopefully they can assist you. If not, I would go back, to them, or maybe talk to the ombudsman that's in charge of that area, because that's where, when I first came into this position, that's the first person I went through was them, and sat down and talked to them about this whole process, so then I can have a clear understanding about my responsibilities and what I was doing. And that's how, that, and then over the years and dealing with different attorneys and stuff like that, I've got the knowledge that I have now. So maybe in some departments they just don't have the person that's there with that type of knowledge right now.
Yes, and a lot of times it is taking the time to build a collaboration and build that relationship with that law enforcement agency and say, look, your signature, it is not going to provide the status automatically. It is not going to give the immigrant the U visa. It is just going to create an opportunity for this person to apply for the benefit. That's it.
Right.
And the last word is going to be given by the agency, UCIS.
Yes.
And there is so many other requirements. Do you want to touch up on those?
Well, I think I want to touch on what you just said. Some people think, I mean, even in our department at times, I have to explain to some officers that this is not a gift that we're just handing to people or what have you. It's not. What we're trying to do as law enforcement is to enforce crime. We are trying to serve the public and stop or mitigate offenses that are occurring. And within our immigrant and refugee communities, a lot of people will go after them because they know they fear police. They fear coming to report crime. So if we're not handling our victims that are immigrants and refugees, then those criminals that are actually targeting them now gain confidence, do more things, and now they're going to go after other people because now they are tried, true, tested, whatever you want to call it, to go get bigger crimes. And so we can't allow any crime really to go out as far as victims wise, but to really try to enforce this, get arrests, protect our communities so that it makes it less and less that our people throughout our city are going to be victims of crime.
Yes. Here it is. Good afternoon. 17 years old is considered a juvenile.
That is correct. And even in some states, depending on laws, being 18, even though you have adult stuff, if you're still in high school, some things are still considered in a juvenile part, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to think of some examples, and I don't have it on top of my head right now, but like, for example, driving. If you're still driving and you have a driver's license, at 18, you still can only have a minimum of so many people in the car because they're still considering you a juvenile. If you're still in school, in high school. So yes, 18, yes, you're definitely an adult in our country, but you still have some parameters of being recognized as a juvenile.
It is very interesting to be an immigrant in this country because there are so many rules. And I always said that coming to this country, there is no a manual for immigrants. You know, I would love to, when you're here, they're like, okay, this is the United States, welcome.
Yes.
And this is a manual for you, learn all these rules. And, you know, you go through life in this country and you start learning the rules.
Yes.
Either by failure, experience, but
Yes.
I would say that if you have any question like this, police officers they're not only there to arrest, they will be so happy to tell you and to teach you and educate and together actually go to the root of what do you need to know.
Yes, absolutely. We would love to be able to assist people in helping them prevent stuff from happening to them, as opposed to being on the other side of it, having to help you through a time of crisis. I mean, if we can do that, I mean, again, that makes our city safer and makes our job a lot easier, that's for sure.
There's another question, an interesting
Yes.
question. Can I obtain any kind of records if my aggressor was 16?
Absolutely.
They keep this keeps saying no due to it being a juvenile.
No, so well, it depends on the records, but you definitely could get a report of your offense. So if I'm a victim and let's say I got, maybe a 16-year-old robbed me, okay, I can get the report. The report is going to basically say that I'm the victim. So it lists me as the victim. It takes care of my part of it. Are you going to get the juvenile's information? No. But you will get a subpoena to court. You will go to court. You will face, as a victim, you'll be able to tell your side of the story and the offense to a judge, and it will be prosecuted just the same. But again, as a juvenile, I know juveniles do commit crimes and stuff like that, but we try to protect our juveniles as much as we possibly can, and their information is like I said, you'd be amazed how many times people will take juveniles' information and misuse it and abuse it and not, do what they're supposed to do.
But in this case, it doesn't really matter if they have you as the victim of a juvenile. So we can prepare the certification with the information that you are in the report.
Yes.
And immigration does not care who was the abuser, as long as you are characterized as the victim. So
Correct.
it is a lot of information sometimes that gets attorneys that do not have enough expertise in the U visa stuck. Or sometimes they say, well, let's wait until the process, until the abuser is sentenced for you to receive the certification. I said, no. Let's go on right away so you can start making the line because
Yes.
this is a huge line.
Yeah, the important thing to understand about, you said it perfectly, the U visa certification or T visa has nothing to do with somebody being convicted or being sentenced to jail. It's not, because you don't control that. We don't control it as officers. We can do our best we can. We get a crime scene, get the evidence, make the report. We can do everything, but we don't control convictions. We don't control, sentencing or anything like that. So it's not important. What's important is that, again, you're a victim of a crime, it qualifies, and you're assisting us as much as you possibly can for us to solve it.
They possibly can, assisting you as much as you can. And that is very subjective sometimes.
Sure it is. Yeah, but the issue is that it's the possibility of assisting us. So if, let's say you can't identify the person, but you have a lot of information, you have a time, you have a place. If we find the offense on a camera that actually helps us identify the person, even though you couldn't identify the person, we can still solve the crime. So reporting it, saying where it was, maybe there was witnesses, they can testify to who it was or what have you. So sometimes there's going to be offenses where, if you're a victim, you may not be able to identify the person, but with you reporting it and telling us where and when and what happened to you, we can do that in other means. So it's not a certain level. It's just that you're there to be able to assist us in whatever way you possibly can.
That is very important because from the immigrant community, sometimes we deal with the culture difference that they're presented in their home countries, where they have to have the evidence at hand to prove to an officer that the crime occurred. And they're like, are they gonna just believe me if I call the police right now and I told them that I have just been robbed? And I say yes. And it is very difficult to just penetrate or crash that idea and say, yes, I will believe you only in your testimony.
Yeah, because a report for us is basically opening an investigation to the offense that occurred. It's not, stipulating exactly what happened unless the evidence is very, very clear, and even when the evidence is clear, it's still an investigation. We're still going to do our part to add more stuff, gain evidence, do whatever we have to do, again, to be able to stop the perpetrator, take it to court, make it arrest, do those things. So there's all kinds of different levels, but the important thing is to report it, so then we start this process.
Yeah, thank you. What is the limit after the incident occurred that I can get the certification?
Well, technically there isn't a limit, but I would almost measure it as something that we can actually do in the investigation. So let's say, I'm trying to think of an offense that for statutory limits, and I don't have that in front of me right now. Let's say, I'm trying to think of something. Maybe, I don't know if felonious assault I can't remember the limits on felonious assault, but if it was 10 years ago, okay, we may not be able to solve it. And what the U-Visa certification is for is to assist us in solving the crime. So if we don't have the evidence to be able to do that, and it's past the statute of limitations, and each state has their own on each crime, then that probably would not qualify just because it's outside of the time limits. But again, if you reported at that time, and maybe we could not solve it, but we could go back because you reported it at that time, and now we bring you to help us solve it, then that could absolutely work.
The issue here will be to get the police report, because most of the agencies, they will destroy the police reports after certain years, and then you realize that you were a victim of a crime, or you remember, and then you can go back and get the police report, but the police report is not existent, and we have those cases where it is so sad because there is no evidence, and there is not evidence, and I'm sure that he will say, well, yeah, I can trust your client, but still we have to prove it with immigration. Because immigration will want the police report in most cases, and but in some cases we have gone to the courts, and that has filed in the courts, and then we can obtain the certification.
Yeah, I was going to say there's quite a few times because we've went through the process in our department where we've taken all of our paper and we've integrated it into our computer system, and now the reports are all digital for the most part. And if we don't have it, I've had to go to the clerk of courts. I've had to go through the process of finding, hey, this was an arrest, this was a conviction, or this was a charge, and we went to court, and the victim was present when we went there to end up certifying.
Yes, that's good. The report listed me as a witness, and later on it was modified and charged as an assault with a deadly weapon. I guess that there's no question there, but we can take it that the police reports might change, might be modified, and also they can be listing you as a witness, and sometimes you can still apply for a U-Visa as a witness. It depends on the facts.
Yes. Yeah, there's been a couple times where the person was a witness, but because of miscommunication, there actually was a victim, and we had video to show that there was a gun pointed at them, and they were actually a victim, even though at that time something physically wasn't taken from them. But if they were held in that spot and a gun was pointed at them, you're a victim just like the next person had their wallet and everything else stolen from them. So really, again, the report, what we can find to corroborate what happened, benefits us a lot in being able to know if there are more victims than just the one, or the information that you give us.
Yeah. Every situation is completely different, and that's why I always say that this is not legal advice. You have to go with an attorney to actually have the time for you to tell what happened in your case, and based on that, they have to open a case, research for the police report or court documents, and later on speak with law enforcement agencies.
Absolutely.
And
These are some great questions.
Yes. Keep it coming. I don't know if you have any questions over there. No. Is saying the police report was wrongfully listed me? Yes, and that that they was what you just said, from witness to victim, but it only is that can be achieved only if you do the work, meaning you report the police first, or you spoke, or you created the record, and second, you go and ask for the police report and you get help. It's very important for you to be proactive in your immigration status.
Absolutely. I mean, but that's why they have, like our police department has me in this position to investigate those things. So then when I get a U visa cert that might come from somebody and they're not listed on the report, well, why? What did it happen that way? Were they actually a victim? I go through all that background to find out. I go to the investigators, the officers that were on the scene, whatever we have to do to be able to figure out what was right or wrong when that occurred.
Perfect. And I think that's it.
Someone's asking if you could reintroduce yourselves, kind of explain what you're talking about.
Of course.
Okay. I'm Officer Anthony Johnson. I'm with the Cincinnati Police Department, and I'm the Immigration Liaison Officer for the city.
My name is Efilia Diaz, and I am an attorney. I practice immigration law, and I have been dealing with U visas for 11 years. And U visas is a relief where victims of crime can apply to UCIS, to the immigration government, and to obtain a relief.
Yeah, and so what we're doing here is just explaining all the ins and outs to U visas, what it actually is, how it's utilized, and how important it is to our community members throughout the city and really throughout our country.
Yes, exactly. And I think that we reached the end of the questions for now.
Okay, all right. So one of the things that we kind of talked about last time was how the U visa will protect workers. And that kind of falls a little bit out of law enforcement, but most of the time it gets reported to us. And so even as law enforcement members, we don't know how to redirect that, which of course I do because I've had to experience this. But what I wanted to talk about is some of the cases that have occurred throughout our country, and then how to report this. So one of the things, and I'll try to cite my sources or try to remember to cite my sources here, but like NPR has an article about child labor crisis and how immigrants are being misused throughout our country in jobs. And then how, for example, there was a 12-year-old young girl in Alabama who was working overnight stamping auto parts. And then you had a 12-year-old in Florida who was doing roofing for housing. You had a 13-year-old young boy who was working 12-hour shifts on an egg farm 6 days a week. And the concern is, not just immigrants, but children, period, being misused in some of these jobs and how to manage them. So the number one thing is to contact OSHA. OSHA is the company in our country that actually oversees all worker issues, problems, concerns, and any type of complaint that you might have. Here's another article, and this is from theguardian.com, where a young Latino kid, 16, was fatally injured while cleaning machinery in a Mississippi slaughterhouse. And again, number one, the dangers in workplaces should automatically, raise red flags among them. But OSHA actually goes about and investigates these offenses, and it doesn't have to lead in death. It could just be injuries and things like that. And they actually will do the investigation for the U visa cert or the T visa cert, and then go about, assisting the victim or the reportee in these type of offenses. And that's under the whistleblower protection. And so I even have, it's Occupational Safety and Health Administration, I'm sorry, OSHA. And then there's even a number, but if you look up online, you can get them anywhere. Anytime that you have any type of concern, issue, problem that you think might be a problem in your workplace, again, whether you're an immigrant or not, this is for everybody across the country. You can contact them, and then they will open up an investigation and figure out what it is. And if you are an immigrant that needs a U visa or a T visa to assist them in addressing these companies that have these workplace problems, by all means that they will help you and assist you in this as well. And this is something that was just started back in January of last year for workers in these workplaces, because clearly, as I mentioned a couple articles here, it is a problem, and it's a rising problem in our country.
A rising problem. It is just a very. I wanted to focus on that. Do you see more being reported more, or happening more, or both?
Oh, both. By all means. I mean, I only pulled up 3 or 4 articles, but if you go through it and look at the range of offenses that are occurring and how much is being reported, this is going all over the place. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, a 16-year-old working that many hours during the week. I mean, you need to be in school. You need to be doing kid stuff. You need stuff like that. I mean, even that is an issue, because like in the state of Ohio, we have work permits. So our juveniles are only allowed to work so many hours
Correct.
per week, and then that has to be approved through their school. So I mean, working that much, something's going through, something falling through the gaps here where, that should not be happening to a 16-year-old. That's for certain. So, but like I said, it's important to, you can visit the website. It's translatable, so you can see it in different languages if you want to, and understand some of the rules, the rights, and protections that you have working. And again, it's workplace stuff. So it doesn't matter where you're working. If it's an issue and a concern to you, report it, and then they will follow up and investigate it.
Yeah, that's very important. And I think that these type of cases where it is labor exploitation more to minors, it is very difficult to pierce that bubble that they are in, and to be able to educate the victim for them to report it.
Yes.
Because this is borderline, not only that the exploitation in itself, it is trafficking, it is, I think that there has been more education about the T visas, and probably I see it why it is rising to the reporting, which is good. There is a lot of, for the T visa, which is a trafficking visa, is
Yes.
another type of immigration relief. But you don't have to be victim of any crime. You have to be victim of trafficking.
Yes.
Human trafficking. You want to say what is human trafficking?
So it basically is forced labor, whether it be physically or maybe it be emotionally and mentally, where they're like threatening to do something to you, to where you're not having the normal benefits of somebody working with the right protections and everything else. So, a lot of this you see, and maybe farming or housing or things like that, because they're easily hidden. But I'm literally talking about an auto plant, just now, and I'm talking about, an egg farm. I mean, so these places are clearly everywhere throughout Ohio, let alone, throughout our country.
Yeah.
So this is something that clearly is happening in our backyards, and most people do not look at it as that, because you're working for a company and they're paying you and they're doing stuff. So it looks and feels under the premise of something being correct or right. But if this is abusing the rules and the laws that OSHA has in place and our country has in place to protect workers, it's wrong. And especially if it's overly done. And yes, you are arguing trafficking here at this point, especially if it's, forced labor. And again, I can't tell you, with these jobs about whether it was forced or not. But if you're a juvenile, you're clearly not going to understand all the rights and privileges, even though as a juvenile you sign up for work, the idea is that you understand this stuff. But again, as a kid, I can tell you right now, I worked a number of jobs in high school. I did not know all my rights and all my stuff, and all my protections. And I say this for juveniles, but I have articles where adults, full-grown adults, were being abused overly by these hours and things like that too. Because there's protections for every worker, so it doesn't have to be juveniles. It's all the way across the board, and those protections are there, so you have rights as somebody that's working and trying to make an honest living.
What does that mean to be forced to work? How does that look like?
So some of it, in some situations we had where they would threaten people from their home country. If you don't do this, we're gonna have them attack your family, or we'll kill your family back home. Or it could be, I'm gonna take your passport, I'm gonna take your your stuff that would allow you to be free, work for 6 months, and then we may give this stuff back to you, or you'll earn it back. things where you're not free to leave. I mean, you're not free to go about doing whatever you want to do, again, whether it be, financially or physically threatening, to be made to do something that, again, is not going to be under any type of guidelines of law.
Yeah.
Like no fair wage, things of that nature are clues to this stuff.
I just recently have a consultation that it was not a human trafficking ring or organization. It was just a single event where the victim was invited or lured into the country to work for a very small company, and it was the only employee that he was invited to come to work, and it was not forced by any physical means or threats, but he was forced to have sexual contact with one of the managers. So that is also for him to just be able to keep his job, right? So that is there is a different type of force or coercion where you feel that you have to perform that act, or to give him back in value, to keep working or to have that job. So eventually he was able to escape. But there is many other ways where human trafficking can be found, and therefore,
yeah, that would be something that we definitely would want to look into more to see what led to that more. But that could go a couple different ways. I mean, again, and OSHA protects workers for that.
Yeah.
So I mean, even if it's not something that is, I'm sure there's probably some law enforcement, and again, more background, more information, but. That's what OSHA is here for, is to protect workers in all of these different situations when it comes to violations, problems, or things that are against, again, people trying to work and just have an honest, decent job.
Yeah, and he was a minor, so.
Oh, wow. Yeah, but there you go. That even makes it worse. So there you go.
Yeah, it's and why minors? It's just because they don't know their rights. What you say?
Absolutely. Yeah, our juveniles I guarantee you they're a lot smarter than us at a lot of things, cell phone technology, stuff like that, social media. But when it comes to laws and understanding, rights and wrongs and things like that, your adults who have actually been through a lot of this stuff before have a lot more experience. And sometimes they use that against our young people, that's for sure.
Yeah, because there is a vulnerable population. That's why they need additional protection.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So very interesting with the T visa, it is that not all the cases will need a certification. If they're a minor, if you're a minor and you were trafficked as a minor, you don't need to present a certification. Or if of reporting the trafficking will make you be in a vulnerable mental position, or you will suffer extreme mental distress, you can get an exemption to file a certification. But with the U visa, it is just you have to have a certification. There is no exception.
Yes, that is correct, and it has to be. I think there's stipulations where it has to be typed, presented, everything else like that. But when it comes to U visa, it has to be an official document that's submitted. That's for sure.
Yes. My case is under U visa. I had a work permit expedited from another case. It's closed. How long will is the wait? The wait for the U visa right now, it is the U visa in itself, because there is a cap.
Yes. I think I even have the cap somewhere here in one of these.
10,000.
Yes.
10,000.
Yes. Thank you.
10,000 per fiscal year.
Yep. Here it is.
So
right here.
right now they are in 2016.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's forever.
Yeah, it is forever. So the only way that we are gonna get that cap out, it is if we have a new legislation, and that legislation has to come from Washington, the federal government. There is no other way. It has to be it has to be a bill. It has to be approved. But so far we have what we have right now, and if you can file a U visa, or you can report a crime that happened to you, do not miss the chance and do it. And it's not only because of the U visa, it is because it is your civic duty to report that crime, and your civic duty to make sure that the community is safer.
Yeah, the reason why law enforcement is all in on this and engaged in this is because this is our opportunity to be able to help our community members not become more victims of crime. Because if the criminal gets away with 1, 2, 3, 4, they're going to go for 5 or 6 offenses, 7 or 8, until we actually stop them. And again, I've said this before, our immigrants and refugees, because they don't have a really good understanding of our country, and how things go, they're low-hanging fruit. They're easy victims to fall for some of these, you know, these fraud cases and possibly robberies and things like that. And it's important to report it because it gets us on it immediately and to be able to assist and help so that we're not having more victims of the same crime.
Yeah. There's a person here that is asking for help. Who can I talk to report that my son or my baby,
Yeah, baby.
he or she is 5 years old and is in the United States without his consent or her consent?
Ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot. So I also work with unaccompanied minors that are immigrants that are here, but we would have to figure out what the background is on that. So like if they're here with maybe another relative or maybe how they were here, did they come to visit and not go back? There's a lot of stuff into that, but I would start if you're not here currently, your country of origin, I would start there with your consulate and things like that, because if they came through passport, and again I'm reaching stuff here, if they came through their passport, then you would have at least a point that they came through, how long they've been here, who they came through with, because at 5 you have to be accompanied with somebody, you know, if you came through with somebody. Now if you're unaccompanied, then you should probably would be with some type of resettlement agency, because that's immediately what happens with unaccompanied minors, and then they get placed.
Yes.
So yeah, we would need a whole lot more information, that's for sure.
Yes. And I don't know why this.
Uh-oh.
Because that
because that went off.
Yeah.
Oh no. Okay.
So something else that you wanted to share today?
I think we've covered a lot in a small amount of time. I think what we could do is maybe continue a little bit more on the labor stuff next month.
Yes.
And
yes.
and if you have questions and things like that, please send them to us, and we'll prep them for you for our next opportunity. And if there's stuff maybe outside of this, we could definitely bring some more information to anybody and everybody that's interested.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.